When I did research, people always said they wish they started the hair removal sooner, and they wish that they started working on the voice sooner. So those are the two things I really wanted to start as early as possible. They don't cost that much money, but I figure, once you get that part out of the way, it's kind of like it's finished. Once you get the voice that you're comfortable with, you can always use it. Once the hair is gone, it's not coming back. But at the same time, it was a little bit less risky to start with those things than just starting with hormones, because, your voice, I still use my old voice most of the time. It hasn't prevented me from doing that, so it was safe in that regard. And I'm going through the process of starting hormones now, but, it's a long process, so I just want to make sure I'm being safe with that, and all decisions I'm making are for my own health, instead of just going out and buying stuff and trying to do it myself. So, that's pretty much, there's the official start of the transition, but I'm sure most of us will say how we've been thinking about it a lot longer. I know that I started exploring myself more once I got out of high school and had more independence, so it's taken a long time. For some people it takes until they have kids of their own, and, when they're much older. For some people, they can start very early on. Going through this transition process has really steered me away from being in relationships. I think once I settle into the way I'm going to be for the rest of my life, I can start that up again. But I've also, through having multiple relationships and going through those failures, and a lot of them was not being able to relate to on a personal level, because I didn't really identify well with myself, so I couldn't really be open and share who I really was. So that emotional disconnect really hurt a lot of my relationships. So I think in the future I'm going to be a lot more careful about getting in relationships if I decide to do that. But I look at the sexuality part as a much smaller deal than being comfortable with yourself. I think once you're really comfortable with yourself, then, being with somebody else, whatever gender that happens to be, it can be a more fulfilling relationship, and hopefully, something that will last for a long time. I went from a place where I really wanted to be loved by somebody else, and that was my whole world, was being in that relationship, to a place where I really just wanted to feel comfortable with myself, and then the relationship stuff can come later. I always looked at the family issue as the hardest part of the process, because your family's been with you your whole life, and they think they know you best, and they know what's good for you, and especially my parents, who have their own dreams as far as what they want out of my life. So it's just very hard to tell them something that they probably don't want to hear. But it seems like the people who are closest to you have the hardest time dealing with those type of major changes. And from my perspective, it's not a major change. It's just sort of the progression of me throughout my life. So I look at it as we're all changing, and to them it's a big deal because they think they know who I am. But to me, it's not really that big a deal. The big deal is just getting everyone else on board. But for me, it's really a lot easier. It's just hard to explain to other people. And there's really, unless you're really interested, there's not a lot of times you get to learn about this stuff. So even I, who was interested in it from a young age, it took me a long time to figure out enough stuff about it. So I know the process that I'm going through has taken me years to get to this point. I expect it'll take them years as well to really wrap their heads around it. And it's a process we have to go through. I'm just trying to do it in a slow, painless way as best I can. But my family has been really great overall, so I'm optimistic. But we'll see what happens. And I had big questions about spirituality when I was younger. Um, when I started to research stuff and took a lot of philosophy classes, I ended up becoming a Buddhist, and then a Zen Buddhist. Um, it's more of finding what I thought was real in the world and then finding something that I could fit into, at least to a large extent. And, just like Christianity and other religions, Buddhism has many, like a variety of different beliefs and followers. I look at Zen as kind of like the core of Buddhism, the most important parts without any of the excess. And to me, that was my first major transition in life. I think the big one, like, all those questions and things that I was worried about, I found something that worked for me. So I think I had to get those big things out of the way first before I dealt with transition, because I think if I tried to transition earlier when I didn't have all that sorted out, it would have just been too much to handle. So I'm really glad that I got the religious thing out of the way. And I'm not very religious. I don't like go to temple every weekend or something, I guess I would say I'm more spiritual, but it's more of a private thing. That's another thing I like about Zen, is that it's very, through the meditation and such, you're sort of figuring out the truth for yourself, but with some assistance, but they're not like telling you the way it has to be. They're saying, try this out, and if it works, then, that's good. So I don't think it makes much sense to have like sex or gender on everything, like all your ID. Like, it's kind of a societal thing that we see people and we automatically sex them as male or female, and there's no in between. Like, some places do have like in between, like other gender modifiers, but most of the time people are always like splitting people into these two groups. And I mean, that extends into a lot of things, from sexual orientation. You see somebody, you're wondering what sexual orientation they are. You start categorizing them into races and ethnicities and all this stuff. So I'm really not a big fan of using a lot of those categories in our identification. I think name is fine, birthday, stuff like that, but sometimes it just gets like too many details. Like, I think I knew one transsexual person in college, and that's pretty much all the exposure I had to it. So if it wasn't for the internet, I would feel like I would just been completely in the dark. And it was actually watching videos on YouTube about people. It was actually about voice, actually, like seeing somebody's, feminine voice and presentation on YouTube, that convinced me that it was something I could do. So without that and being able to communicate with them, it would have been a lot harder. So I think not only for just finding out basic information, but relating to other people who are similar to us and seeing the results they get, it makes it a lot easier than just feeling like you're just completely different from everyone you know and you don't know if it's going to work out. So, because I always felt very asocial, and it's just trying to break out of that at the same time as finding a voice that sounds more feminine. It's a difficult challenge, but I look at it as a steady progress. Like, I never am going to get to the perfect voice, and at the same time I have to be happy with how far I've come, and just keep striving to improve, to be the best person I can be, whether it's more feminine voice or just sounding louder, or there's tons of things I can improve with my communication. And just from little things like not getting upset, not arguing with people, there's always room to improve, and it doesn't have to be going from something male to female. Like, we're all going through that process all the time. So I never used to smile in public. Like